back to the channel. I want to talk about staying warm and comfortable on the backpack trail. And I bought a heating blanket. It's put out by a company, I think. The brand is Newfi. It says JYK here, but the user's manual says Newfi, N-E-W-F-I. But this is, what's neat about this blanket, it has 8 heating panels in it, centrally located. It's powered by a USB cable that plugs into a portable battery that comes with it. And I'll break this down and we'll look at it. This is really neat for people who are going to maybe spend just one night on the trail. If you have someone that hates to be miserable like me, or you have a wife or someone that is somewhat of a nester and dislikes discomfort, and you want them to come along, this may be the answer. I don't know. So what I'm going to do, Saturday, I'm going backpacking in the Ouachita Mountains of Arkansas. We're supposed to have a low that night of 19 degrees. It'll be a high of 46. It's a 9.2 mile trip. We'll hike in about 5 miles, camp by a creek. So it's going to be pretty miserable. The following day, I think, is a high of only 30 or 32. This thing's supposed to last for 8 hours. It's got 3 different settings on it. And I'm going to take this out and use it. Okay, well here we are. It's Saturday, and we've made a little over 5 miles of our 9.2 mile hike. It's about 4:58, and I've just set up my tent. So this is looking inside the Eureka. It's got a weather fly on top. You can see the screen sagging. It's a screen tent with a fly that you can pull over during the winter time or off, or if it's raining, or off during the summer months if you're hot. But I've got a Thermarest mattress in here. I've gotten all the rocks out from under the tent. I have a Swiss Sport sleeping bag that I stole from my brother. I think it's a 5-degree rating, 5 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's a good bag. I enjoy it. I ordered, on top of it, I've got another blanket that I brought in. It's a very small, compact. It's got compression straps. You can use it as a poncho. I ordered this on Amazon. And then on top of that, I've got a blue nylon backpacker's tarp. So that's what I've got on top of my bag. And I figured out that using these tarps really catch your heat. It does cause condensation and it'll make your top covers wet, but it's worth it if you're an old guy like me and you don't like to be cold. So inside here though, you see is the electric blanket. It's this gray thing, and I've got this stretched out in there. I've got the battery in the blanket in the compartment. We'll go over all the blanket in the brochure later on, but the plan is to turn this on about 10 minutes before I get in bed. There's a 4-hour setting on it. There's 3 different settings. I'll keep it on low, and I'll also throw about 5 or 6 of these hot hands in there with me, and we'll see what happens. So if this is really nice, this may be something that I could use to talk people into people that really hate being cold and don't like being miserable. On a simple day hike like this, or a single overnighter, it may well be worth it. Okay, so let's take a look inside of this heating blanket. So like I said earlier, this thing weighs 2.6 pounds. Inside are the instructions. And one thing that I wanted to show here in the instructions is the layout of the blanket itself. You can see here, this blanket it's not like a normal electric blanket where you have wires that loop all through it. What you have are 8 separate heating panels that are distributed evenly across the blanket. So that's how that works. But the blanket comes in a bag, and it also comes with a power bank that we'll get into, and that's it. So I'm going to spread this blanket out and we'll take a look at it. Okay, so this is the blanket laid out on my kitchen table. It's not a very big blanket. I measured it with my tape measure so I could have it in inches. It's roughly 34 inches wide and about 53 inches long. So this is almost 3 feet wide and about, well, close to 4.5 feet long. That's one of the reasons I was able to so easily stuff it inside of my sleeping bag when I was out on the trail. If you look over here on the right side, you'll see the snaps here that also you'll see at the other end of the blanket, and there are no explanations as why those are there, but I think it's just so that you could snap them and make a ring on one end and wear this like a poncho or a shawl. This thing is 100% polyester, so it's cheap material. Basically this is almost like a plastic blanket, I guess. You can wash this, but it needs to be washed in a mesh bag, and I'm assuming that's to prevent this thing from being shorted out and the wires strained or pulled in a way where they no longer conduct electricity. Right here is the switch, and I'll get into that in a minute when we put the battery in. So in this pocket on the left, this is where the battery goes in. If you open it up, you'll see a USB fitting here, and so the battery slides into this pocket and is hooked up to this USB wire. There's also another wire in here, and I'm not sure why it's here. I guess it's maybe an extension. If you wanted to extend this further out, it's a longer cord and maybe have like an external battery. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the battery. This shows to be a 22.5 watt USB battery. On the back it shows to have 74 watt hours with a capacity of 20,000 milliamp hours, I believe is the way that's read. It also says that this battery, in addition to having a USB output, it's also got a two-way type C, which I'm reading as I've already used it as a charging port, but that you can also use it to draw on, like if you wanted to run a laptop. So inside of the box there is one battery bank, which is here. You can see the two USB ports. You can see the top two-way port here. I'm not sure what this port is, but nonetheless there is one there. And you get a charging cable and you get one wall plug. So that's what comes with the battery bank. Now the battery bank also has a switch on the side, and when you press it and hold down, you'll see these lights that will illuminate. There's 4 of them. When they're all illuminated, it indicates that this power bank is fully charged, and I just took it off the wall charger. But what I did when I was in the woods the other day to stay warm, I plugged this in to the battery and I placed it into the side compartment and I zipped it. So I slept with the battery at my head, which I don't know if it's a good idea, but that's what I did. Now the blanket also has this switch, and what you do is I don't know if you can see this or not, but right here there's a flame and there's a picture of a clock. So the flame is an indicator of what setting it's on and how much heat it's putting out, and the timer is for how many hours this blanket will run. So you turn this on by holding the flame down, I think for 3 seconds, and you'll see this 1 come on. That means this is in the low setting. I read the brochure. It's a Chinese product, and I think there were some things lost in translation because it says this heating blanket has 3 gears. And I don't think it has 3 gears. I think it has 3 heat settings. But if you were to take that literally, this would be 1st gear, 2nd gear, and 3rd gear. So that is your heat setting. When I was in the mountains of Arkansas, I started at 1, but I was cold, so I set it on up to level 2. And then this button here starts with 0H, and what that means, it's 0 hours. So if you were to leave it in this setting and just walk away, this thing would not heat at all. It would turn off, I think. You toggle it again, it goes to a 1 hour setting. Toggle it again, 2 hour setting, and third time it puts it on 4th hour set, or a 4 hour setting. And then you continue to toggle, it goes back to 0. So what I did in the mountains was I set it at 4 hours. Now, according to the instructions, this battery will last 8 hours. I'm assuming on low. But you can only set your blanket to burn for 4 hours at a time, or to heat for 4 hours at a time. So at some point in the night, it turned off, and I got cold pretty quick, and then I woke back up and I turned it back on and set it for another 4 hours. And it couldn't have been off long, because I woke up about every 30 minutes because it was cold and the wind was blowing, and I was in a little tent and it was claustrophobic, and I was in a mummy bag. So there were a lot of things to make me not sleep well. But during the night, I got a total of 6 hours of this blanket burning with it on that level 2 heating setting. So it burned really well. It was nice. It felt great. And I think getting 6 hours out of a battery pack like that is pretty good. It got down, I think, probably into the teens. I'm guessing somewhere between 16 and 19. And I never really got cold so long as this was burning. Okay, so in conclusion, just 3 things real quickly. Number 1, in my opinion, is the electric blanket worth it on the backpack trip? And for me, the answer is yes, it is. I enjoyed it. I was surprised I got 6 hours out of the battery. Blanket weighs 2.5 pounds with the battery pack included. That can be kind of heavy on a trip if you're trying to limit your weight, but for a single day hike, or a single overnighter rather, I think it's great. Second thing is, remember, this is a luxury item. You don't want to put this in your pack and depend on it to work to keep you warm in a dangerous situation, because it's a fairly cheap product. It's full of all kinds of wires and connectors. And when you get out on the trail, if you're depending on this, you have to assume your battery's going to work. You're going to have to assume that all the connections are not shorted out. So there are a lot. You're going to have to assume that your battery pack didn't get wet, during a rainstorm or something. There's a lot of things that could mess you up if you're depending on this. So it's simply a luxury item. And then number 3, I thought I better read this from the same brochure that tells us that this electric blanket has 3 gears. And it says this: the power bank, that's the power bank. The power bank is specialized for NuFi heated blankets, but it can also be a regular battery to charge cell phones and other devices. So it would have a dual purpose on the trail. The problem is if you use this on the blanket overnight, you probably wouldn't have anything left for cell phones. And incidentally, this is where most of the weight is. But after it says that, it says, do not charge the phone while you wear the heated blanket. Simultaneous use will cause excessive power and an explosion. So don't charge your phone and use this blanket at the same time. Thanks.